Okay, this is a little bit better. At least I've got the video this time. I still want to screen share, so I need to get rid of a couple of things before I can share my screen. So we've got YouTube up, so let's screen share YouTube, and then I'll pick something. Let's pick a little bit of Psychocybernetics. This is much better. Psychocybernetics. I'm about 20 minutes into this book, but it's I've had the book before many years ago. And it's interesting, and it's always got good stuff coming.
Some 60 years ago, I reported many such case histories in my book, New Faces, New Futures, written more for my peers than the public. Following its publication, and similar articles in leading magazines, I was besieged with questions by criminologists, psychologists, sociologists, and psychiatrists. They asked questions that I could not answer, but they did start me on a search. Strangely enough, I learned as much from my failures as from my successes, if not more. It was easy to explain the successes. The boy with the 2 big ears who had been told that he looked like a taxi cab with both doors open had been ridiculed all his life, often cruelly. Association with others meant humiliation and pain. Why shouldn't he avoid social contacts? Why shouldn't he become afraid of people and retire into himself? Terribly afraid to express himself in any way, he became known as stupid. When his ears were corrected, it would seem only natural that since the cause of his embarrassment and humiliation had been removed, he should assume a normal role in life, which he did. Or consider the salesman who suffered a facial disfigurement as the result of an automobile accident. Each morning when he shaved, he could see the horrible disfiguring scar on his cheek and the grotesque twist to his mouth. For the first time in his life, he became painfully self-conscious. He was ashamed of himself and felt that his appearance must be repulsive to others. The scar became an obsession with him. He was different from other people. He began to wonder what others were thinking of him. Soon his self-image was even more mutilated than his face. He began to lose confidence in himself. He became bitter and hostile. Soon, almost all his attention was directed toward himself, and his primary goal became the protection of his ego and the avoidance of situations that might bring humiliation. It is easy to understand how the correction of his facial disfigurement and the restoration of a normal face would overnight change this man's entire attitude and outlook, his feelings about himself, resulting in greater success in his work.
All right, so a little bit of context. Maxwell Maltz is writing in the late 1950s. I think the book was published in 1960. And he's a surgeon. He's a corrective surgeon. What's the word? I can't remember the word. But he's basically fixing people's faces. He's a plastic surgeon. That's the word. Corrective surgeon's a good enough version of that. But he's basically correcting deformities, correcting issues with people's bodies. So his context is body image, but then he's generalizing that to self-image in a psychological way. It makes sense if you combine psychocybernetics with some of what Neville Goddard says, then it does make sense that everything comes from self-image. Everything comes from your psychological state, your mood, which takes us back to Heidegger. Mood is an important thing for Heidegger. So all of these things linked together. There's a strand of philosophy and psychology that links together through psychocybernetics and Neville Goddard and Joseph Murphy and Think and Grow Rich. Napoleon Hill does some things that are similar in there. So visualization of an appropriate state of being is what it comes down to, or feeling of a state of being, which then moves you on to the next place that you want to be. So if you're feeling like you're living in poverty, if you're feeling poor, you're gonna see poverty everywhere. You're gonna reinforce the feeling of being poor. And if you move out of that and become prosperous, you see prosperity everywhere. So it's a feedback loop. from the inside to the outside. But the outside is the results, and the internal state of being is the cause, because that's the filtering mechanism. So that's the principle that I'm trying to get at with these 3 or 4 things that I've been looking at over the last couple of months. Yeah, that's enough for now. Let's stop the screen share and end the meeting.